So I'm Cait, and this is Ciara. We'll introduce ourselves a bit.
So I am a mental performance consultant provisional, so still waiting on my certification to come through. Cait's fully certified at this point. I am a fully registered clinical counselor, and so I'm here in both roles. So we'll work on the performance side of things and helping athletes and teams optimize performance through the different mental skills that we'll talk about tonight, but also dealing with some of that heavier mental health stuff when it comes in. What else about me?
Sports?
Yes, sports. So I come from a gymnastics and a rugby background. I finished off my athletic career as a rugby player. I played my 5 years at the University of British Columbia with the Thunderbirds. Played for the national team for a bit, and then went over and played professionally in Japan. When I was over there, I really struggled with my mental health and didn't have access because of the time difference to my sports psych and couldn't access theirs because of the language barrier. So I eventually made the decision to hang up my boots and come home and do my master's and pursue research in this area to help athletes have the skills to be able to, the biggest thing for me is cope with that transition between being an athlete and moving into the real world. So my area of research is athlete identity, which I think we'll talk about a couple of those numbers there. I don't want to take up too much more time, but if you have questions about who I am in particular, feel free to ask maybe towards the end.
And I'm Cait. I also did my master's in psychology. Unlike Ciara, I did not play professionally. I don't think I had the mental skills ever to get that far, but I grew up playing competitive hockey, ski racing, and now I mountain bike. I also did some research, but mine was more on the psychological recovery from injuries, specifically concussions. So that's my area of interest. That's why I got into this work. I've had pretty severe injuries that have stopped me from playing certain sports, and I got really frustrated with that inability. And so born out of that, I started researching how I could enjoy sports again and how to get over that fear of re-injury. And now I'm here, like you said, I'm a certified mental performance consultant.
And that's Ollie.
Really wants to be in here. And so both of us, honestly, we really love the work that we do, and we are really excited to be here with Speed Mechanics. And so what is mental skills training? And are any of you guys familiar? Have you heard the word before? Yes?
Yes, they signed up for the session.
Yeah. So really our goal is to help your children develop emotional and mental skills so that they can optimize their performance and also really enhance their well-being. Sport is a game. It's supposed to be fun, and so a lot of what we do can help them remember that amongst other things. And so basically what we do is anything between the ears. So whether that's confidence, motivation, bouncing back from mistakes, getting over fear of failure, anything that goes between the ears is what we focus on. And the approach that we really take really starts with developing self-awareness. If you're not aware of what works and what doesn't work for you, it's really hard to develop the skills that can help you improve your performance. And so we really start with awareness, and from there we start practicing it in lower risk settings, not as high competition, and from there then moving it into the competitive setting. So it is a process. It's not a one and done approach. And then most importantly, although Ciara is a registered clinical counselor, our role right now, mine specifically with Speed Mechanics, is just about that sport performance facet. So if we don't treat or diagnose mental health conditions within this role. So how we like to explain that, so say your son or your daughter has anxiety in sport, and they're talking about how they get really nervous before their race, or really nervous before they step onto the pitch. It's like, okay, yeah, that anxiety is totally normal, and we're more than happy to help them work through that and develop different mental and emotional skills to overcome that feeling. However, if we notice that anxiety is playing into their relationships, affecting their school, affecting them as a larger person, that is something that we would talk to you as a parent about. Happy to provide resources, but within our role as an NPC at Speed Mechanics, that is not something that we would focus on. Yep. Or treat ourselves.
Yes. Okay, a little bit about our approach. I think first and foremost, relationship is the most important thing for us. We strive to create a safe and inclusive environment for each and every athlete team that we work with, and really, what else do I want to say here?
It's a lot.
Honoring, the complexity of the human and the sport experience, and knowing that that really looks different for everyone. So getting to know the athlete before we dive in, and then taking a holistic approach. And so, you know, understanding that, what do I want to say there?
Well, I think it's more that we look at a broad spectrum, so like all the different areas of their performance that could impact what's working and what's not working for them.
Yeah. Yeah, and sorry, that, guys, I have stage fright, okay? I don't like that the video is Can you cut that part?
Yeah.
That's for the next session, joining on. Really.
I know that it is. And, okay, yeah, holistic approach. So all of the skills that we teach in mental performance consulting and mental skills training should be able to transfer over to life skills too. Cognitive behavioral, so we look at how thoughts influence behavior, or how thoughts influence feelings, and how those feelings and thoughts play out in behavior and performances. Take a mindfulness and awareness, so sort of the same thing there, helping athletes kind of be aware of what those thoughts are and how those impact their feelings and vice versa, and what those behaviors are. And then we can kind of start to shift either thoughts and behaviors to make those feelings more functional and help them get back to those performances that they want to be having. Solution focused, so that is, you know, an athlete comes in with negative self-talk and we're implementing something like thought stoppage, cognitive reframing, maybe a little bit of visualization to really go in on that challenge that they're bringing in. Our work is very experiential, so any team that comes in or any group that we have, we will, whatever skill we're teaching, we're having them go through it, whether that's on their feet, we're playing a game, we're very games-based, or they're going, you know, we're working through a worksheet with them. We're not just going through a goal-setting session, but they're setting those goals through the session.
Just chiming in.
Yes, please do. Yeah.
I think what we realize, especially with the younger age groups, is like when they actually get to engage in activity that is about goal setting or is about confidence, they actually remember it rather than just being preached to about why confidence is important. So we really like to physically engage them. We do tons of games, and we found that it's really effective with this age group to get them physically involved, because we also do know that you as parents and your children have so much on their plate that just getting another presentation is probably in one ear and out the other. So we really like to get them physically involved so that they embody the experience of whatever skill that we're teaching.
Yeah, that's all I want to say there. But
yeah, and I think the other thing is like it really is different for everyone. So how one person, what they take away or how they engage with mental skills training is very different for another. It's a very unique process, and both of us, we do individual and group sessions, and we always tailor it to whatever your child's specific needs are. It is not, we don't have one presentation on goal setting and we do that with every person. We really adapt it to what their strengths are, what solutions they're looking for, and it's a very collaborative process.
yeah, and then when we're working with teams, we're doing a lot of like going in for initial observation sessions or sending out an information gathering, an intake form to their coach, helping and getting, you know, that feedback from the coach. And so that might be something that we would do if we worked with one of your athletes, is get your input on that process as well.
Yeah. So I did briefly ask this before, but do you or your children have any experience working with mental performance consultants or any form of mental skills training? No. That gives us lots of work to do.
Yeah.
If knowing that what we've talked about a bit of our approach and different skills that we've worked on, which Ciara will go into detail a little bit later, is there one that comes to mind that you think might be most beneficial for your child or the children that you see playing sports right now? Whether it's confidence or focus or resilience, is there one that you think like stands out?
Yeah, I mean, my son was on a AA baseball team this past year, and it was more like the team itself.
Team cohesion? And culture?
Like they would just kind of tank, like mid-game, you know, they would kind of like lose their confidence, their focus, and then they would let in like 10, 12 runs in an inning. And it was just a repetitive process that happened over and over again. So there's something going on there.
Yeah. Something within the team dynamic that was not helping performance.
Exactly. Like the first couple of innings would be great, everyone would be on, and then it would just fall apart.
That's baseball. Yeah, we worked with a lot of baseball, and baseball's a hard one. It's a game of failure.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean,
Okay, just wanted to do, this is a really brief one, what can your children benefit from this? Again, understanding that you guys have lots on your plate and your children have lots of training sessions. I think one of my biggest drivers of why I do this work is it's not just for sport and so that they can make the next team or be a better performer. Sport is a very effective tool to learn these skills that are really life skills. Being able to be resilient is helpful, yes, if in baseball or whatever the sport is, but it's also helpful if there's a family crisis or if when they grow up, if they're struggling with something at work. So that's what I think my biggest takeaway is, like, it's a skill for life. It's just sport is a very effective way of teaching these skills. But also it's so they can perform consistently. What we find a lot within this age group is they can have a really good performance or a really bad performance. It's like, okay, how do we bring that wave a bit more steady? And then another big one is, like I said at the beginning, sports are supposed to be fun. I know kids can get so involved in them and they get sometimes too inside their head about how important it is that they win the next game. And so these skills can be like, oh right, sport is supposed to be fun. And when you adapt that mindset, usually performance as a byproduct improves and becomes more consistent. Is there anything you would want to add to that?
I would just echo what you say about skills for life. Like I find that as an MPC and a clinical counselor, I'm pulling from my MPC work all the time into clinical counseling for people that are dealing with issues at all different ages and stages. You know, it's a lot of the same thought management and how to manage your feelings and emotional regulation, that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's all stuff that should transfer over into their lives and life beyond sport. Okay, these are some of the things that we're going to look at, or that commonly come up, things that we address in both group and individual settings. So I don't know that I need to say every word out loud, a lot of them. Well, I think, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, like, so these are the mental things that we focus on. I know Speed Mechanics has lots of different service offerings, but again, we take the approach that the mental things are a very big part of performance, but they're also still one of many. And so we do like to incorporate all the other aspects that lead to a performance, because we do that they all really tie in, and then the mental training of it can really help your child see how important all these other aspects are.
Yeah.
So just the whole person development.
Any questions here? What we see everywhere and things. Yeah. And this isn't everything.
Yeah, I would say there might be skills that you thought should be listed here. This is not an all-inclusive list.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked a bit about who we are and what we do, but I think one of the really important things to talk about is why we do the work that we do, in addition to being passionate about it. There's some pretty, to be frank, alarming statistics about the work that needs to be done. So we'll go through a few of them. So 32%, that's the number, 32% of girls below the age of 12 drop out of sport because they don't feel good enough, quote unquote. And so confidence is arguably one of the biggest skills that we work on the most consistent basis. 31 to 48% of athletes said that they had excessive anxiety when performing their sport, which is a bit disheartening when, again, it's supposed to be fun. And so we like to take a proactive approach. Why we do this work is to take a proactive approach at hopefully reducing some of these stats, especially excessive anxiety. That's not a fun trait to have while growing up. And Ciara will touch on the next two as they're from her research that she conducted.
Yeah, over the last couple of years, I did a lot of research on athlete identity because COVID was such a perfect time to do that when athletes couldn't play the sport. And, we're sat with that question of, okay, who am I, and what do I do, and how do I come back from this? And what I found was 68.
She got data from over 1,000 athletes, so it's like quite inclusive across Canada.
Yes, my sample size was over 1,000 student athletes across Canada, and what I found was 68% of them rated themselves agree or strongly disagree on a 7-point scale that they were experiencing significant psychological distress. So that was 11 different measures of distress, from feelings of loss, overwhelm, sadness, anger. Yeah, there was a lot of different feelings in there. If anybody is interested in knowing more about my research, I can certainly send you a manuscript to talk more about it. And then over 70, this was
there's a plus there.
Yeah, felt like they had inadequate support, didn't know how to access resources, didn't know how to find them, or that they were inaccessible, not affordable, whatever the reason was, didn't feel safe accessing them. That came up a lot. A lot of athletes didn't want to access mental health counselors that were actually connected to their varsity program, but then didn't want to connect with a counselor or a consultant outside that maybe didn't get what it was like to be a high performance athlete. So a lot of barriers to accessing this support, but obviously a very needed and necessary resource.
And then the big 85 that you see there, there's a study done a couple years ago that showed teams that engaged in mental skills training performed more or had better performances 85% of the time. So all of the work that we do is evidence-based. We're not taking things that we see from TikTok or whatever. Like, the work that we do is very, very based in evidence, and we take pride in doing that because we understand that the well-being of your children is probably one of the most important things in your life, and we know that we can have a big impact on that. But we also are very confident, and we've seen it with many athletes, that this work it can be very helpful. And so we don't have too much left, but we're curious to hear what you think your role as a parent is within the mental aspects of sport or within your child's well-being. There's no wrong answer.
Or
We're
just like
we're
generally,
curious.
your child, your athlete's sporting journey. Where do you fit?
Well, I feel like my role is I like them to feel like they're athletic for their whole life. Like, it's not this week or this month or this year. And both my kids, I don't know, they both say they want to be professional athletes at different times.
It's common.
And yeah, so we focus a lot on, like, you don't want to peak when you're like 12, 13, 14, 15. You want to like do skills that will last you for a long time.
Yeah.
So I guess ours was like, my son was playing with injuries this year, so a lot of his friends went into like the high performance team, and we pulled him from that because he didn't want to see him in a growth spurt. But I think, yeah, so keep making him feel like he didn't miss out is maybe what I'm working on with him.
Yeah.
And then my daughter is like, she's like, she won't even let us come to her game anymore because she is so anxious.
I'm sorry to hear that. It's hard.
Yeah. I want to hear
Like, she loves it.
She would enjoy something, well, no, she wouldn't enjoy something that she would get a lot out of it.
Yeah.
Such a trigger.
Yeah.
So a lot of candy and
Yeah. Well, we do have something at the end that might help you with that situation.
And what I heard about your son is that, and both your kids, they've got these really big goals, right? How do you help them just figure out what their journey is, not their teammates, right? Most different, they're at a different point in their career, and make them feel safe and comfortable enough and motivated to move forward in that. Me, anybody else? No pressure.
One thing that I wanted to clarify, we didn't have a slide on it, we did talk about it, but so how Ciara and I work is with Speed Mechanics, well, and all of the other NPC work that we do is, so we do individual sessions, and those are usually, they can be anywhere 30 to 60 minutes, and we do those typically online. And so that's just one-to-one. We work specifically with what their situation is, how we can specifically help them, and then roughly on a monthly basis, we come to here in Speed Mechanics and do workshops. It could be on confidence or it could be on goal setting. And so there's different ways that we work, and then of course we work with different teams and organizations to help implement psychological skills within like organizational wide. But it's important we work on different levels, whether it's one-to-one to group is what I'm trying to get across. Yep. Yeah, and so I did want to share with you, there's like a lot we could go into about how this can help your child, so we just wanted to give you an overview today. Ciara's going to walk you through a website that we think can be really helpful as parents, because again, we know you have a lot on your plate, and so we're trying to take that some of that off of your plate.
Yeah, it's super quick and easy, but I just wanted to send you guys away with a resource that you could look at that we have found. It's really helpful. So I love to watch you play, and they've got some really great videos. So you can just like move over to the video section. You can look at, you can see, right? Yeah, sports parenting, and there's all these great sort of webinars and videos on how to support your athlete
In different situations.
Yeah.
But also what I love about this website is there's lots of research done on what parents can do to support their child in their journey. And one of, I think it's called Changing the Game. It's based out of the States. One thing that they found, like the best thing you can do as a parent after a game is just to say, I love to watch you play. rather than getting to the nitty-gritty details of what worked, what didn't, what's going on. Like, it's just provide that loving support. Here we go.
Yeah.
But yeah, we just wanted to send this to you so that if you wanted to muse over some things that you could do. Do you guys have any questions?